Rams house, we've got a viral report to discuss that's suggesting there might be trouble for Ty Simpson in the backup QB competition for your Los Angeles Rams. Today, we're going to take a look at that report, some of the reactions to it, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys about the way that I feel about this report. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, it just doesn't concern me. But you will find out why. I will tell you why on today's show. But I want to hear from y'all. Make the call right now for me. Who should be the Rams' backup QB? Give me a TS for Ty Simpson, our first-round pick. Give me an SB for Stetson Bennett, the fourth-rounder back from 2023. But here was, I think, the source of all the consternation, I guess we should say, the concern that's been happening in the Rams fandom. Sleeper fired this out. Neither Ty Simpson nor Stetson Bennett has been able to separate in the Rams QB2 battle per Nate Atkins. With Jimmy Garoppolo leaning towards retirement, the Rams view the backup QB role as a significant need behind Matthew Stafford. And this got over 1 million views on Twitter. It just completely blew up. People were reacting to it. I saw people go like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible sign for Ty Simpson. This is clearly bad news for Ty Simpson. And when I read this, I go, because I've heard some of the other things Nate has said about this QB competition, and it doesn't really track in the same way. So I tried to dig it up, and something people don't do as much in this world. They rely on the aggregation, but we found the primary source. Here's exactly what Nate had to say. The Rams only had 3 open practices to watch before they canceled veteran minicamp. But one thing that stood out was that the backup quarterback race is on. This was how Sean McVay presented it upon the selection of Ty Simpson with the 13th pick. And then Stetson Bennett took reps first in the 2 practices Matthew Stafford missed to manage his back. Neither Bennett nor Simpson were able to stand out ahead of the other in these moments, as both worked on crossers, slants, outs, and other basic routes, and neither produced much down the field. Bennett did have a lazy out throw that Trent McDuffie picked off, and Simpson overthrew a couple different deeper throws. It's just not as simple as it was with Jimmy Garoppolo, who had started 63 games before he became Stafford's backup the past 2 seasons. Los Angeles planned on bringing Garoppolo back, even with the plan to draft Simpson. But with Garoppolo leaning towards retirement, time will tell whether Simpson or Bennett are ready to fill a void the Rams consider significant with Stafford's need to take time off and with the risk from each time Stafford takes a hit. So I think when you hear the totality of it, you start to realize, okay, that's not really what Nate said. What Sleeper condensed it to, which is these 2 guys are neck and neck and the Rams want to go sign a backup quarterback right now, is not at all what Nate Atkins had to say. And I think when you read that entire paragraph, you're probably already there. But I literally have nothing to worry about on this. And on today's show, we're going to talk about my 3 reasons why this is absolutely not a concern for Rams fans, why you should not be worried at all right now. But before we get to that, I got to give a shout out to America's #1 sports picks app. Guys, our good friends over at PrizePicks. If you're a regular viewer of the Rams Report, you know I've been getting into the World Cup lately, guys. And a huge part of the reason why I've been getting really into all that action is PrizePicks. Guys, PrizePicks makes it so easy to put together a lineup that just makes watching the games even more fun than it already is. You just pick from 2 to 6 players you're selecting more or less on their stat projections. And even if you don't have a stake in the game, even if America's not playing, if you are an American, you can still root on and you can still get pretty fired up. If you want to get a lineup going with me, here's one that I've got set for today's games. I'm going with the more on I'm not going to try to pronounce any of these names, to be completely honest with you. I'm going with the more, and the more. 25 to win 50 on this lineup of a bunch of guys who have names that I am sure are awesome when you pronounce them correctly, but I absolutely cannot do that. So you can tail these guys on this lineup if you follow me on PrizePicks at Jackson Durham with no spaces, just my first and last name. And if you're brand new to PrizePicks, make sure you use our promo code. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. The clickable link to download the app is in the comments and the description below. Okay, 3 reasons why I'm not worried. Number 1, I think this should be the biggest one. This assessment from Nate Atkins, and I say this with all due respect to Nate Atkins, I'm not trying to denigrate his reporting here at all, is based off of 3 practice sessions. 3 sessions. 3 practices. And I think he would tell you this as well. It is way too small of a sample for real conclusions. I don't think that Nate Atkins' point when he brought up the fact that the 2 guys have not separated in these 3 practices was to make some grand conclusion about either of them and where they're at in their development. Because that would be, frankly, a ridiculous notion. We're so early in Ty Simpson's development process, and we'll talk more about that. But this is a 3-practice sample. He got to watch 3 practices that were open to media, and these are his takeaways from those 3 practices. I'm not saying there's no value in those. That's not the point. But I don't think Nate or anybody else would tell you that what you take away from 3 practices is the end-all, be-all in any situation. And you know who definitely wouldn't tell you that, even if Nate, against my judgment here, would actually tell you that? Sean McVay definitely wouldn't. Sean McVay's opinion of this part of the offseason, everything we've been through so far with training camp still on the horizon, is that it's not real football. He told us that straight up just a couple of weeks ago. He said, things look good. I like what I'm seeing, but this isn't real football. We'll get to real football when we put the pads on. And I think that's the other big takeaway here. Why are we putting stock into guys sitting out there in shorts throwing around like no pads are on? Look at this photo of Ty Simpson. This is him day-to-day in practice right now. Or not practicing anymore now that mandatory minicamp is over. But again, this is not yet real football. The real meaningful conclusions from OTAs and mandatory minicamp is how guys are learning, how they're growing in the system, and we've been hearing all the right things around Ty Simpson on that perspective. I'm just not worried that he missed a couple of throws here. At the end of the day, that's just not a huge concern for me, especially if he's not standing out compared to a guy like Stetson Bennett, who we've talked about a good deal on this show, but Bennett should be leading this competition, and we'll get to that more in a minute. But both of these guys are going to have plenty of opportunities once we get to camp. Here's what Sarah Barshop had to say recently. Both Simpson and Bennett will likely see more snaps during training camp and the preseason than other backup candidates around the league because of the approach the Rams are likely to take with Matthew Stafford. Although McVay said the Rams are still working through the plan for the reigning NFL MVP, Stafford will likely have rest days built into his training camp schedule. So again, real opportunities for these 2 guys will come during training camp. But as of right now, Stetson should have an edge. It should be, at best, neck and neck between these 2 guys. Like, the fact that they can't separate from another, I think that says good things for Ty Simpson about where he's at in his development cycle. Because look, I know Stetson Bennett was drafted in the 4th round. He hasn't played in his first 3 years. But what he has is 3 years worth of experience in this system. 3 years worth of chemistry with a lot of the guys he is currently throwing to. And you know what Ty Simpson has? None of that. Ty Simpson doesn't have any of that advantage that Stetson Bennett has. Draft position out the window as soon as you get to OTAs. What matters is how you play, and of course Stetson Bennett has an early lead. He's got all the experience in the world in this system. He should know this thing like the back of his hand. He's been working incredibly closely with both of our current offensive coordinators, in Rigoni and Shieldhouse. He has had those guys at his disposal for his entire development process. Of course, he's going to be ahead at this point. I think it would be a ridiculous thing. It would be really bad news for Stetson Bennett if he was not ahead of Ty Simpson at this point. He's also coming off the best preseason we've ever seen him play. And again, this is preseason, but it's what you have to work off of with Stetson Bennett. He's never been put in a position to succeed or fail at the NFL level in the regular season, but what he has done is play well in the preseason last year. He completed nearly 70% of his passes, 512 yards. Like to see those 2 interceptions go away, but 5 touchdowns and nearly 8 yards per attempt. And all we've heard is good things this offseason too around Stetson Bennett. He's continuing to grow. Sean McVay had this to say recently. We've talked about this a couple times. I've seen tremendous growth. I think he's done a really nice job. He's earning the confidence of his teammates in terms of commanding the huddle. Then he's done a lot of good stuff in terms of reading with his feet. I think he's had a really good last couple of weeks, and I've been proud of him. We've heard some really good things about Ty Simpson as well, but all of the stuff that we're hearing about Stetson Bennett kind of pointed to him the whole time having an edge. We've talked about this on the channel before, that right now, Stetson Bennett is the leader in the clubhouse for backup quarterback, as of right now. But again, I'm going to go back to point number 1 here. We're basing all of this off of very small sample sizes. We're basing all of this off of what Sean McVay, the guy who's going to make this decision at the end of the day, would call not real football. So, we've got to continue waiting a little bit. And as we wait, the one thing that I continue noticing is this Rams team is not pursuing any backups. They clearly we haven't seen it at all. Jimmy Garoppolo, we have no idea what that guy's going to do. Again, Nate Atkins referenced it recently or in his report. We don't know if that guy's going to retire or not at this point. I've seen some people in the comments say he already has retired. That's not technically true. Jimmy Garoppolo has not retired at this point. He is still technically making his decision. He's still technically going through the process of making that decision, but it does seem like he is very much leaning towards not coming back this year. I think he could sign around the training camp window, join this depth chart. But if he does, that's worse news for Stetson Bennett than it is for Ty Simpson. At the end of the day, that's the reality of it. If they sign a backup veteran, that is because they do not have confidence in Stetson Bennett to stick around or to be the third quarterback or the immediate backup. It's not because they don't believe in Ty Simpson. You don't give up faith on somebody you drafted in the first round in the course of a single offseason without even seeing them play. That's, again, ridiculous. That is terrible team process that could only be attributed to a team like the Jets or the Browns. At the end of the day, this is not how the Rams operate. We're not drafting a guy in the first round to quit on them in the middle of an offseason. And again, Sean McVay spoke around the notion of adding a veteran quarterback. He said that's not something that we've really talked about as of right now. Sarah Barshop asked him about this, our ESPN beat reporter. He said, I would never rule it out, but not right now. That hasn't been something that we've talked about. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. Even if the Rams do, this might sound cold, even if the Rams do go out and sign a veteran backup, I do not care. Period. Because, and I'm going to show you why in just 1 second, but there's 2 reasons, really. Reason number 1, year 1 is entirely about learning for Ty Simpson. Even if the Rams do go out and sign a veteran backup, we never see Ty in year 1. I don't care. We shouldn't see Ty in year 1. Year 1 should not be about playing on the field for Ty Simpson. It should be about working in the preseason, doing well in training camp, and being a sponge. Being a sponge. Being a sponge around Matthew Stafford. Being a sponge around Sean McVay, around Rigoni and Shieldhouse, and Stetson even. All of these guys can teach you things. Even if they bring in a veteran, sponge from him as well. All of those guys have had much more success. They know this system. They can teach Ty a ton. But here's the other thing. Here's the other reason why I wouldn't care. All of the options that exist as of right now, if you take Jimmy G off the table, are bad. They are bad. They are, so bad. Every option that we could go out and sign is markedly worse than Stetson Bennett. I will say that. Here is your list. If you don't believe me, these are the 4 names, the best 4 names available at quarterback right now. Cooper Rush, former Raven and Dallas Cowboy. Jeff Driskel. Some of you guys have probably never heard of Jeff Driskel. Don't blame you. He was with the Cincinnati Bengals for a while. He's pinballed around as a journeyman since then. John Wolford. That would be a blast from the past a little bit. He got some starting experience in 2022. It went. Britt Rypien, another guy who got starting experience with this Rams team. Again, these 2 guys have experience. They know McVay's system to some degree, so maybe. But I genuinely do not believe that any one of these 4 options are better options than even Stetson Bennett. I think Stetson Bennett beats all 4 of those guys in a head-to-head quarterback competition. And that says more about them than it does about Stetson Bennett, to be completely honest with you. But I truly think you are not finding – there is no veteran quarterback out there, if Jimmy G is not available, that comes into this system and makes the Rams go, okay, that's the guy we feel good about if Matthew Stafford goes down. That option doesn't exist. It was Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins went to Vegas. Kirk Cousins got a nice bag from the Raiders to go start over Mendoza, likely to begin this season, and then give way to Mendoza. That was never going to happen for him in Los Angeles, so he knew he could get that option where he could go start. All the best options are gone. Tyrod Taylor ended up in Green Bay. The Rams waited too long if they were going to address backup quarterback this way. There isn't another way to do it. At this point, I don't think anyone, if you're watching this video and you feel really good about any of those 4 backup quarterback options, let me know in the comments. But I truly think that everybody looking at the totality of this is realizing, okay, the Rams evaluated their situation at quarterback, and they said, we're okay with it. We're okay with Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson being our backup QBs. We don't need to go sign a Tyrod Taylor. We don't need to be aggressive with Kirk Cousins and make sure that he lands with us and not with the Raiders. They didn't do those things. And they definitely don't want any of these 4 guys because I truly, again, they're not upgrades over Stetson Bennett, and I sincerely believe they're not upgrades over Ty Simpson either. That's going to do it for us on today's episode of the Rams Report. Guys, let me know in the comments, how do we feel about this report? Are you still worried about it, or have I calmed you down a little bit? Were you never worried at all? Did you not even see it? Let me know in the comments what the Ramily is thinking right now about this whole situation. Who's going to win out this backup QB battle? And I will see you guys in the next one. As always, we appreciate your time, and let's go Rams.